He didn't notice her at first, just another stranger in the dimly lit bar, but when their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them. He had that quiet, weary presence of a man who had seen life's struggles firsthand but refused to let them define him. She, on the other hand, carried herself like the weight of the world rested on her shoulders, poised yet exhausted, radiating the loneliness of someone who had it all yet felt utterly invisible. When she sat down beside him, their worlds collided, not in fireworks, but in a subtle, undeniable pull that made them both pause. The bartender could have been telling them the menu, but in that instant, the universe whispered something far more powerful. Sometimes, you meet the right person in the wrong place, and sometimes, that's exactly where you're supposed to meet them. He noticed her trembling slightly, though she tried to mask it with a smile she thought was confident. He simply nodded, offering a quiet presence instead of words, and the silence between them began to feel less like emptiness and more like a lifeline. "Rough day?" he asked finally, his voice calm but gentle. She laughed, bitter and soft, shaking her head. "You could say that," she admitted. He didn't cry, didn't judge, he just listened. In that simple act, the walls she had built around herself began to crack. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing fragments of their lives in the kind of conversation that feels familiar even when it's new. By the time the bar dimmed its lights and the night crept forward, neither wanted to leave. But the moment passed, as moments always do. She left with a polite smile, a fleeting glance back, and he returned to the quiet that had been his constant companion. The next night, she returned. He hadn't expected it. Nobody did, but when she appeared at the same bar, hope fluttered unbidden in his chest. She slid onto the stool beside him with the same tentative confidence, a little braver this time. "I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation last night," she confessed, and he realized the loneliness he had once felt alone, she had carried too. They laughed at the irony, they cried at the shared truths, and somewhere between the clinking glasses and low hum of music, they began to imagine what life might be like if their paths didn't diverge this time. Her life as a CEO was relentless, the demands suffocating, leaving little room for personal connections that didn't revolve around profit margins and boardroom strategies. He was a single dad, raising his young daughter alone, juggling shifts, homework, and bedtime stories with tireless devotion. Their lives couldn't have seemed more different, yet that difference made the bond between them stronger. She admired the gentleness in his eyes when he spoke about his daughter, the pride that shone even through exhaustion. He admired the vulnerability she let slip when she spoke about the pressures she carried alone, the moments she longed for simplicity over success. They began meeting at the bar regularly, though it was never just about the bar, it was about the sanctuary it provided. A place where they could be human, stripped of titles, expectations, and judgments. The first real challenge came when her work demanded a trip overseas. For days, he worried, imagining her life continuing without him, the possibility that the fragile connection they were building might shatter. She, in turn, wrestled with the guilt of leaving responsibilities behind while longing to hold on to something real. When they finally reunited, the embrace was wordless but full of every unsaid fear and hope, and in that moment, they understood, what they had was worth fighting for. The second challenge came more quietly, in the form of self-doubt. He wondered if a single father had any place in the world of a powerful CEO, while she questioned if she could ever have a life that balanced love and ambition. They confronted these doubts together, not with grand gestures but with small acts of care, a shared coffee, a reassuring smile, a late-night phone call. Slowly, trust and courage replaced fear, and the barriers between them dissolved into understanding. In time, their connection grew into something neither had dared to imagine. She began visiting not only the bar but his home, where laughter echoed through the walls as his daughter accepted her presence with surprising ease. He learned to navigate the complexities of her career, offering support without envy or resentment. And she, in turn, discovered that success felt fuller when shared with someone who grounded her, someone who reminded her that life was not only about deadlines and boardrooms but about moments of real, human connection. By the end, it wasn't just about two people finding each other, it was about learning that love can be patient, resilient, and healing. Sometimes, the people who enter our lives in unexpected ways teach us that happiness doesn't arrive in grand gestures or perfect timing, but in small, persistent choices to be present, to care, and to show up. And as they sat together one evening, watching the city lights shimmer in reflection and holding on to each other as life's noise faded, they understood that the loneliness they once carried had been replaced, not by perfection, but by the profound comfort of being seen, truly and entirely, by another soul.